Hey friends, this is Eunice Ho, and thank you for joining me for the Journey Home podcast. First off, I just want to apologize because I did not do my podcast for a couple weeks because I have been traveling. So, most of September, actually, my husband Chris got to travel, and he did some trips one to Asia, one to the Middle East. And then in the beginning of this month, I got to go to the Middle East. And so we have been tag teaming and just traveling a lot. So maybe we did not plan our travels very well because something that we forgot to factor in was jet lag. So we are a bit rusty post COVID in traveling, but we are so grateful for the opportunity to travel again, honestly. We haven't done international travels in a while. So, like I said, we're a bit rusty, but I'm grateful to the Lord for these opportunities that were really so encouraging for our hearts to be back in the nations again. So, I will specifically just share a little about my travels, which it's the first time I traveled internationally by myself, which, guys, this is a huge deal. I know I might seem maybe more independent than I am. And the reality of it is, I rely on Chris a lot for just organizing our life. And one of the things that he does really well is books our plane tickets and helps with the visas and makes sure our passports are all updated. And I'm so grateful to him for being so administrative. But this is the first time I was traveling alone. And so he was having to really coach me in, like, okay, this is what you do at the airport. This is how you get your visa. And this is what documents you show the guy at the counter. And so, again, I'm so grateful for my husband because he's done all these things for me these past years when we've traveled together. But something I was just so grateful for on this trip, where I got to go to the Middle East and visit some of our friends, is just being reminded again of what is outside of my little Colorado bubble, honestly. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to travel because the Lord reminds me, man, there is a world out there and people are longing for Jesus. Maybe they don't even realize it. In fact, most of them probably don't. But we know that their hearts are longing to know the Lord, the one who created them. And that's something I love being reminded of when we travel. And so I just want to share scripture with you guys, and that's Mark 16, starting at verse 15. He said to them, "Go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creation." And I just love the Great Commission here because the Lord is telling us to just go. The whole world needs to hear about Him. Now, I think that there are several components to going. And I don't believe that every believer is called to go, to be honest, to be an overseas worker in the nations as a minister. I don't believe every person is called to that. But I do believe that every believer has a responsibility to sow into the Great Commission and the gospel going forth in every single nation. I do believe that, each of us plays a part. Now, what I mean by that is maybe you're not called to go, but maybe you can sow your finances into sending someone to go. Or maybe you're going to sow your finances into a different ministry that is called to go and do the work in another nation who hasn't heard about Jesus. And so that's what I mean about I believe that every believer has a part to play in this. All that being said, I really do believe it's an invitation from the Lord. So when I was overseas earlier this month, man, it is a different reality. Like I said, being jet lagged, the first morning I wake up at 4 a.m. and I'm just like, oh, I'm awake. But man, 4:30 a.m. I heard the call to prayer going out, and I'm just like, man, this is something that Muslims do where it's like, I think 4 to 5 times a day, over the loudspeaker in the mosque, they sing a prayer. And the prayer goes out throughout the whole city. And man, it is a different reality. It was an awesome reminder for me. Eunice, wake up, pray. God's longing for those of us in his body to also be praying and contending for his word to go forth, for people to know his love, for people to know the God who created them. And that's something, man, I just love being in the nations where I'm reminded of that again, because not everyone gets that reality. Something that the Lord reminded me of was the privilege I have being from the United States. Now, I don't mean this to be like all like annoying and like condemning to people. It's really, like I said, a reminder, an invitation from God again about my privilege. And what I mean by that is this. Number one, I really felt the reality of the privilege I have to have access to the gospel. Now, I am blessed to have been raised in a Christian home. And the reality of it is my parents taught me about Jesus since I was born, really. They taught me to love God with all my heart since birth. And that to me, I realize, is such a privilege I had growing up. But another privilege I have of being in the United States is this. Even if I didn't grow up in a Christian home, if by some random chance I wanted to hear about Jesus, I could find a church in my neighborhood. I could probably find a church in my town, if not in my neighborhood, where I could like Google it and find a church. If I really was desperate to hear the gospel, I could go find a pastor and be like, hey, share the gospel with me. And most likely he will, or she will. You know, the thing is, though, in these nations where there are such few Christian believers, there are so few Christian believers in these nations. People, statistically, now I'm just talking statistics, because the last nation that my husband and I lived in, it was 0.001% at the time of Christians in that nation when we lived there. That means I could, if I just randomly had inspiration to hear the gospel, I could literally just start trying to find a church, start knocking on people's doors to see if I could find a Christian. And I could go through hundreds of people and never meet one believer. Now that reality again struck me on this trip. I was like, man, I am so privileged to have access to the gospel. And I really felt an invitation from the Lord is like, yes, Eunice, you're privileged. Like him reminding me of that privilege. And what am I going to do with my privilege? Am I just going to sit back and just be like, oh, cool, I'm so glad I can stay here and be privileged? Or it's like, really, can I sow into the work of those who have said yes to him to go into the nations and be that Christian witness, that light, maybe that single light in their neighborhood, and just share the love of God. And that's where I feel so honored that, we as believers, we can sow into work. Even if we are not called to a particular nation, we can sow into the work of believers who are, just ministering in these nations. And that's where I just want to invite you guys into as well, is like, man, you might not be called to these nations, but if you can sow into the work there, what an honor and what a privilege it is for us to do so. And so, honestly, if you're listening to me and you're like, Eunice, how do I sow into these workers, these laborers that have gone? Email me, please. I would love to share with you how you can sow into some people that I know, their lives and their ministries, as they are bright and shining lamps in these very dark nations. Now, I just want to also share this scripture, and that's Psalm 24. This is what the Lord spoke to me when I came back from my trip. Psalm 24:1. The earth is the Lord's and everything in it, the world and all who live in it. And something that is true when you're traveling too, and you're seeing just people not knowing the Lord and stuff like that. Man, my heart was stirred. But when I am prone or just drawn to feel overwhelmed, the Lord was reminding me, Eunice, the earth is mine and all the people in it. And he is just inviting me into his work. I don't have to feel overwhelmed. I cannot do everything, but I can do something. And that's what the Lord was reminding me of, is Eunice, like, okay, you feel overwhelmed in this moment of just hearing the call to prayer and then feeling like, oh man, I need to be praying, man, and just praying my will into this nation. Yes, I can do my part in praying, but I don't have to get stuck in like condemnation, because I do have to remember, man, the earth is the Lord's. All these people he loves, and he is just inviting us, his people, to partner with him in sharing about his son Jesus, And that's something that I just love about the Lord, is he is not looking to just like condemn us or condemn even the people over there. Man, his love for them is so great. And that is all I want to see, is just his love going forth and reaching the hearts of these people. Because, man, I do, as a woman even, live in privilege where I realize, man, it is a privilege for me to wear shorts. When I am hot, I can put on shorts here. And it is a privilege. When I just see the women there, and they can't wear shorts when it's hot, and they live in the desert, guys. It's pretty hot. They can't just wear shorts. They walk around with their heads covered all day, at least when they're out in public. And I was just thinking, man, what a privilege it is for me to wear my hair down, to not cover my head when I go about my day. Those are things I've realized, man, I am privileged. But not in a way that I didn't feel like this condemning like thing from the Lord. I just felt, man, an invitation. Eunice, how are you going to share my love with these people? With the privilege that you have in your life. How are you going to offer it up to me and just see my word go forth in the nations? And that's just something that I just want to share with all of you guys. I don't necessarily have like a conclusive answer, but I do feel so honored that the Lord would have given Chris and I these opportunities to go into the nations, and just to be reminded of his heart for the nations. Because his heart is so for the people there. His heart is for all of us here too. His heart, if your sphere and you feel called to your workplace, I just pray that you will be a light in your workplace. If your sphere that the Lord has called you to is to your kids' schools, I just pray that you will be a light in that sphere. But if your heart is also for the nations, I just pray that we as a body of Christ in the United States can really be sowing into these nations, whether we're sending workers and laborers there, or sowing finances to these nations that have such few Christian witness in these places. I just think it's awesome if we as the body of Christ could do that, man. What an honor. And so that's all I really wanted to share today. And I just want to just invite you, man, ask the Lord, is there anything that you want me to do today to impact the church in these nations where there's few Christian witnesses? And I just pray that you would be obedient to whatever he puts on your heart. And so that's just my invitation to all of you guys. And I just thank you all for listening. And I hope that you know that you are so loved by the Father today. And I hope that you have an amazing week. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.